Captain James Miller stood at the center of the vast Galactic Council chamber, feeling smaller than he ever had before. The circular room towered hundreds of feet high, filled with representatives from over 50 spacefaring civilizations. Some floated in anti-gravity pods, others sat in chairs adapted to their unique body shapes, but all eyes were fixed on the human standing before them. He cleared his throat and gestured to the holographic display showing Earth's military capabilities. As representatives of Earth, we bring centuries of military experience and innovation. Our standard-issue rifles use gunpowder-based projectile technology, refined over hundreds of years of warfare. A ripple of laughter echoed through the chamber. High Commander Bright of the Steelborn rose from his metallic throne, his crystalline skin gleaming under the chamber's lights. Projectile weapons. Gunpowder. You mean to tell us you still throw little pieces of metal at your enemies? His voice carried the kind of amusement adults reserve for children's drawings. Miller kept his face neutral, though his jaw tightened slightly. Our weapons have proven highly effective in all our conflicts, Commander. We found no reason to abandon reliable technology. More laughter followed, louder this time. Several council members whispered among themselves, pointing at the displayed weapons with what could only be described as pity. Young species, Bright continued, waving his hand dismissively. Let me show you real weapons. He pressed a button on his throne's armrest, and the hologram changed to display Steelborn energy rifles. These can disintegrate targets at molecular levels. The energy shields they generate can stop any attack. This is the minimum standard for Council military forces. Director Wells, standing behind Miller, stepped forward. With all due respect, Commander, effectiveness isn't measured by complexity, but by results. Before Bright could respond, Ambassador Reed floated forward in his illuminated pod. Unlike the others, the ancient alien's eyes showed genuine curiosity. His species, the Wisdom, were known for their analytical minds and long-term thinking. Tell me, Captain Miller, Reed's voice was soft but carried through the chamber. Why has Earth maintained this technology when energy weapons seem the logical evolution? Miller nodded, grateful for the serious question. Simple, Ambassador. Reliability and resourcefulness. Our weapons can be maintained with basic tools, manufactured almost anywhere. And most importantly, they never fail due to power loss or electromagnetic interference. One bullet can end a fight just as effectively as a plasma bolt. Fascinating, Reed murmured, his large eyes blinking thoughtfully. A philosophy of practical effectiveness over theoretical advancement. Most interesting indeed. High Commander Bright's crystalline features hardened. This is absurd. We cannot admit a species into the Council that relies on throwing metal pellets for defense. It's primitive, dangerous, and frankly embarrassing. The vote has already been cast. Commander, Reed reminded him gently. Earth has met all technological and societal requirements for Council membership. Their military doctrine, while different, is not a disqualifying factor. Miller watched the exchange quietly, noting the growing tension. The Steelborn delegation seemed personally offended by Earth's military presentation, while other Council members appeared split between amusement and curiosity. As the session concluded, Ambassador Reed approached Miller privately. Captain, do not let their reaction discourage you. In my 900 years, I've learned that those who laugh at different approaches often miss their hidden strengths. Miller smiled. Thank you, Ambassador. We humans have a saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Wise words, Reed replied, his eyes twinkling. Though I suspect some of my colleagues may learn their wisdom the hard way. As Miller and Wells left the chamber, they could still hear discussions about Earth's primitive weapons echoing through the halls. Neither of them felt the need to defend their technology further. After all, humanity hadn't survived this long by caring what others thought of their methods. What they didn't know then was how soon their weapons would prove their worth, and how quickly the laughter would die in the face of their effectiveness. 3 months after Earth joined the Galactic Council, Director Wells stared at the growing list of attacked colonies on his office screen. His small office in the Earth Defense Force headquarters was filled with both traditional paper maps and holographic displays, a perfect example of humanity's blend of old and new technology. "Another mining outpost hit," he muttered, adding a red marker to the holographic map. "That's the 5th one this week." Captain Miller walked in, his face showing the strain of sleepless nights. "The pirates are getting bolder, sir. They just hit the Anderson colony on Mars. 15 ships this time." Wells leaned back in his chair, rubbing his tired eyes. "Let me guess, they had those new shields the Steelborn developed." "Yes, sir. The colony's energy defenses couldn't scratch them. Fortunately, we had a unit of Marines stationed there." Miller's face broke into a slight smile. The pirates didn't expect rifle fire to punch right through their fancy shields. Before Wells could respond, their communication screen lit up. Ambassador Reed's concerned face appeared before them. "Director Wells, Captain Miller, I trust you're aware of the increasing pirate activities." "All too aware, Ambassador," Wells replied. "Something about these attacks doesn't feel right. They're too organized, too well-equipped." Reed nodded slowly. "Indeed. My sources tell me these pirates somehow got their hands on military-grade shield technology. Technology that's supposedly restricted to Council defense forces." Miller stepped forward. "Ambassador, in every attack, they've used the same tactics. They sweep in expecting their shields to make them invulnerable, but they retreat the moment they face actual resistance. It's almost like they're testing our defenses." Wells finished. "But why target human colonies specifically?" Reed's large eyes narrowed. "Perhaps because someone expects you to be the weakest link in Council space. After all, you're the newest members, with the most primitive weapons." His tone carried a hint of irony on the word primitive. A junior officer burst into the office, saluting quickly. "Sir, we just got reports from the Jupiter mining station. 3 pirate ships approaching, same shield configuration as the others." Wells stood up. "Miller, get out there. Show them why Earth doesn't need fancy energy weapons to defend itself." "Already on it, sir." Miller turned to leave, then paused. "Ambassador Reed, these pirates, they're using Steelborn shield technology. The same type High Commander Bright showed off during our introduction to the Council." Reed's expression grew grave. "An interesting observation, Captain. Even more interesting is how these pirates seem to avoid attacking any Steelborn territories or ships." "Politics," Wells growled. "They laughed at our weapons, and now someone's testing if they were right to do so." "Be careful, my friends," Reed warned. "I fear these pirates are merely the surface of a deeper problem." The Steelborn delegation has been unusually active in Council meetings, pushing for standardized military protocols across all member species. Miller checked his rifle, an old habit that had served him well. "Standardized protocols? You mean abandoning our projectile weapons for their energy ones?" "Precisely." Reed's image flickered slightly. "They claim it's for better coordination in Council defense. But it would leave us dependent on their technology," Wells finished. "Technology that these pirates somehow got their hands on." The junior officer returned. "Sir, we're getting distress calls from 3 more colonies." Miller headed for the door. "They think we're easy targets. Time to show them why humans stuck with simple, reliable weapons all these years." As Miller left, Wells turned back to Reed's image. "Ambassador, we need to know what's really going on. These aren't random attacks anymore." "I agree," Reed said softly. "Watch yourselves, my friends. I suspect these pirates are about to learn a harsh lesson about underestimating primitive technology. I only hope that lesson doesn't come at too high a cost." The communication screen went dark, leaving Wells alone with his thoughts and the ever-growing map of attack sites. Something bigger was coming, he could feel it. The only question was whether Earth would be ready when it did. The red dust of Mars swirled around the mining colony's defense towers as 5 pirate ships descended from the orange sky. Inside the colony's control room, Sergeant Adams watched them approach through reinforced windows, his rifle ready at his side. "Look at them," he said to his team, "flying in like they own the place, shields glowing all pretty like." He clicked his radio. "All units in position. Team 1, ready. Team 2, in place. Team 3, waiting for the party to start." The pirates had grown confident after successful raids on other colonies. Their energy shields had proven unbeatable against standard council weapons, and they expected this human outpost to be an easy target. They didn't know that this time, things would be different. The first pirate ship landed just outside the colony's main gate. Its shield shimmered like a soap bubble in the Martian sunlight. The second and third ships touched down nearby, while 2 more circled overhead. "Humans," a voice boomed from the lead ship's speakers. "Your defenses are useless against our shields. Surrender your resources, and we might let you live." Adams smiled. "Radio silence from here on out, folks. Let's give them the welcome they deserve." He raised his rifle, watching through the scope as the pirates began to exit their ships. The aliens moved with complete confidence, not even bothering to take cover. Their shield generators created personal force fields around each of them, giving them a faint blue glow. 20 pirates in total, all wearing the latest steel-borne protective technology. Adams waited until they were halfway to the gate. "All units," he whispered into his radio, "weapons free." The sound of gunfire echoed across the Martian landscape. Regular bullets from standard-issue rifles, simple, reliable, and completely ignored by the Council's military experts. The pirates didn't even try to dodge at first, trusting their shields to protect them. That trust lasted exactly 2 seconds. The first volley of bullets passed straight through their energy shields like they weren't even there. 3 pirates fell immediately, their expressions of shock visible even through their alien features. The others scrambled for cover, suddenly realizing their supposedly impenetrable defenses meant nothing against primitive projectile weapons. "Impossible," one of them screamed over their comm system. "Their weapons are outdated. They're not energy-based." "That's right," Adams muttered, taking down another pirate with a clean shot. "We're just throwing little pieces of metal at you. How's that working out?" The pirates retreated in chaos toward their ships. Those that made it activated their vessels' shields, expecting the same protection that had served them so well before. But the colony's defenders had prepared for this too. "Heavy weapons teams," Adams commanded. "Show them what else we kept from our primitive past." The defense towers opened up with heavy machine guns, simple, brutal, effective. The pirates' shields, designed to disperse energy weapons, did nothing to stop the barrage of high-velocity rounds. Metal tore through shield generators and engine housings alike. 2 pirate ships exploded before they could take off. A third managed to get airborne but lost engine power and crashed a mile from the colony. The remaining 2 ships fled into the Martian sky, leaving their ground forces behind. Adams kept his rifle trained on the battlefield as cleanup teams moved in to secure the area. He clicked his radio to the command channel. "Control, this is Mars Colony Defense. Area secured. You might want to let Earth Command know. We just proved why we never gave up on ballistic weapons." In the aftermath, as his teams gathered pirate shield generators for study, Adams couldn't help but laugh. The most advanced defensive technology in the galaxy, defeated by what the Council considered museum pieces. His radio crackled. "Sergeant," Captain Miller's voice came through. "Good work out there. How did their fancy shields hold up?" "About as well as paper in a rainstorm, sir." Adams watched as his teams collected the pirates' bodies. "Though I suspect whoever sent them won't be happy about this field test." "Let them be unhappy," Miller replied. "Just make sure everyone knows what happened here. The Council needs to understand. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways." Adams looked at the wreckage of the pirate ships, their advanced shield generators useless against simple bullets. "Oh, I think they're about to learn that lesson real well, sir. Real well indeed." The emergency council chamber was quieter than usual. The usual murmur of 50 different species discussing politics had been replaced by an uncomfortable silence. At the center of the room, a hologram showed the aftermath of the Mars colony battle. Ambassador Reed stood before the council, his illuminated pod hovering slightly above the floor. The evidence is clear. Human projectile weapons completely bypassed our most advanced shield technology. High Commander Bright's crystalline form seemed to darken with anger. This is impossible. Our shields are designed to stop any weapon. Any energy weapon. Captain Miller corrected, stepping forward with a captured shield generator in his hands. You never thought to test them against physical projectiles, did you? The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Director Wells, standing beside Miller, activated a new hologram showing slow-motion footage of bullets passing straight through the pirates' shields. Look at this, Wells pointed to the image. Your shields are designed to detect and disperse energy. But our bullets, they're just pieces of metal moving really fast. No energy signature to detect, nothing for the shields to grab onto. An older council member leaned forward, his tentacles waving with interest. Are you saying our entire defense strategy has this weakness? I'm afraid so, Reed answered. Every ship, every personal shield, every planetary defense system, all of them built on the assumption that advanced weapons must be energy-based. Miller placed the shield generator on a scanning pedestal. We've analyzed this unit. It's not just similar to steel-borne military technology. It's identical. Same manufacturing marks, same power signature. The chamber erupted in whispers. High Commander Bright stood up sharply. Are you accusing the steel-borne of supplying pirates? We're not accusing anyone, Wells said calmly. We're simply sharing facts. Facts that might explain why these pirates only attacked colonies with energy-based defenses and never went near steel-borne territory. Ambassador Reed's eyes narrowed. Perhaps the real question is, why did the steel-borne push so hard to standardize Council military technology? To replace every member's traditional weapons with their shield and energy weapon systems. The Council chamber grew tense. Several members began accessing data panels, reviewing military contracts and defense agreements. High Commander Bright's crystalline skin flickered with barely contained rage. This is absurd, Bright snapped. You expect us to believe that primitive projectile weapons are superior to our technology? Not superior, Miller replied. Just different. And sometimes, different is exactly what you need. He picked up his rifle, holding it up for the council to see. This weapon was designed by humans who had to fight in all conditions. No power needed, no complex parts to fail. And now we know. No shields can stop it. Reed floated to the center of the chamber. I move that we immediately begin incorporating human military doctrine into Council defense strategies. We cannot ignore this vulnerability. Second, called out the tentacled council member. Others quickly joined in. High Commander Bright stood rigid, his voice cold. The steel-borne delegation requires time to review these findings. Of course, Reed replied smoothly. Though I suggest you review them quickly, because right now, every pirate and criminal in Council space knows our shield's weakness, and I suspect they're already looking for human weapons. As the Council session ended, Miller approached Reed privately. They're not taking this well. The steel-borne. Reed's eyes showed concern. No, they're not. They've built their entire military reputation on their shield technology. This humiliation won't go unanswered. You think they'll try something? Captain, Reed said quietly, I think they already have. These pirate attacks, they're just the beginning. The steel-borne won't accept being embarrassed like this. They'll want to prove their superiority. Miller checked his rifle out of habit. Let them try. We'll show them what else humanity kept in its arsenal. I hope it doesn't come to that, Reed sighed. But if it does, I'm glad Earth remembered that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. As they left the chamber, both knew that this revelation about shield technology would change everything. The only question was, How far would the Steelborn go to maintain their military dominance? Director Wells stood in a hidden monitoring station deep within Earth's moon, watching as technicians decoded intercepted communications. The room was lit by dozens of screens showing pirate ship movements and Steelborn fleet positions. "Play that last transmission again," he ordered, eyes fixed on the main screen. The technician nodded, replaying a message they'd caught between a pirate vessel and an unknown source. The voice was distorted but clear enough. "Testing complete. Shields useless against human weapons. Proceeding with Phase 2. Captain Miller walked in, carrying a datapad. "Sir, you need to see this. Ambassador Reed just sent it." Wells took the pad, his face growing darker as he read. "Steelborn weapon shipments to their outer colonies. Triple the usual amount. Fleet movements near Council borders. They're not even trying to hide it anymore." "There's more," Miller said quietly. Reed's sources found proof. The pirates. They were working for the Steelborn the whole time. Wells slammed the pad down on a nearby console. "They used those raids to test their shields, to see if any species could break through their defenses. And we did." Miller picked up the pad, scrolling through more data. "Look at these dates. The Steelborn started increasing their military production right after they joined the Council. They'd been planning this for years." A young analyst rushed into the room. "Director, we've decoded more transmissions. The Steelborn, they'd been supplying shield technology to pirates for years, testing them against different species." "Of course," Wells muttered. "That's why they pushed so hard for standardized weapons. They wanted every Council species dependent on their shield technology." Miller nodded grimly. "And once everyone switched to energy weapons, their shields would make them invincible." Wells finished. "They could take control of the Council without firing a shot. No one would be able to fight back." The main screen lit up with Ambassador Reed's face. He looked worried. "Director Wells, Captain Miller, we have a problem. The Steelborn delegation just left the Council chamber. They're recalling all their ships." "It's starting," Wells said. "They know their plan failed, that their shields aren't perfect anymore." Reed's image flickered. "There's worse news. We found proof they've been sabotaging other species' traditional weapons programs for decades, pushing everyone toward energy weapons and their shield technology." Miller checked the tactical display. "Their fleet is moving. All of it. They're abandoning their usual patrol routes. Because they don't need to pretend anymore," Wells realized. The pirates were never meant to succeed. They were just testing the shields, making sure no one could resist when the real attack came. The room's lights dimmed as emergency power kicked in. Alarms began blaring throughout the base. Multiple Steelborn warships just jumped into the solar system. The analyst shouted. "They're on an attack vector." Wells straightened up, his voice calm despite the chaos. "They think they can overwhelm us with numbers. That even if their shields don't work, they can still win through pure force." "Should we call for Council help?" Miller asked. "No time," Wells replied. "Besides, most Council species gave up their traditional weapons years ago, switched to Steelborn technology. They couldn't help us even if they wanted to." Reed's image started breaking up. "Earth, not alone. Other species, keeping old weapons, contacting them now." The transmission cut off as another alarm sounded. The analyst's voice shook slightly. "Sir, we're detecting more ships. Hundreds of them. The Steelborn are coming with everything they have." Wells looked at the tactical display, watching the enemy fleet approach. Then he smiled, surprising everyone in the room. "Sir," Miller asked, confused. "They still don't get it, do they?" Wells said quietly. "They think because their technology is newer, it's better. They forgot the most important rule of warfare." "What's that, sir?" "Never start a fight with someone who kept their weapons for a reason." Wells turned to his communications officer. "Send word to all Earth forces. It's time to show the galaxy why humanity never threw away its guns. The space around Earth lit up like a thunderstorm as hundreds of steel-borne ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Their fleet stretched from the Moon to Mars, their shields creating a beautiful but deadly light show against the darkness of space. In Earth's orbit, Captain Miller stood on the bridge of the EDF Defender, watching the enemy fleet approach. "Status report," he called out. 500 steel-borne warships detected, his sensor officer responded. "They're arranging themselves for an attack run." Miller nodded calmly. "Just like we expected. Are our surprises ready?" "Yes, sir. All orbital platforms armed. Ground batteries standing by. The old missiles are in position." The main screen lit up with High Commander Bright's face. His crystalline features showed nothing but contempt. "This is your last chance, humans. Surrender your weapons and submit to steel-borne authority. Your primitive technology cannot hope to match our numbers." Miller smiled slightly. "Funny thing about primitive technology, Commander. Sometimes the old ways work best." He turned to his weapons officer. "Show them what we mean. All batteries, open fire." The space around Earth erupted with activity. Hidden platforms that had looked like simple satellites revealed themselves as missile launchers. Hundreds of rockets, built with technology that the Council had dismissed as outdated, streaked toward the steel-borne fleet. "Pathetic," Bright laughed. "Our shields will." His voice cut off as the first missiles struck. Unlike energy weapons, these missiles carried simple metal slugs. They tore through the supposedly impenetrable shields like they weren't even there. "Impossible," Bright shouted as explosions bloomed across his fleet. "You can't." "We can," Miller replied. "And we're just getting started. All ground batteries, you are weapons free." Massive rail guns, hidden in mountains and deserts across Earth, opened fire. They launched huge metal projectiles at incredible speeds, each one carrying enough kinetic energy to tear through multiple ships. The steel-borne fleet's perfect formation began to break apart. "Their shields are useless," Miller's tactical officer shouted. "They're trying to regroup." The steel-borne ships started returning fire, their energy weapons lighting up space, but Earth's defenses had been built knowing this day might come. The human ships rolled and dodged, their hulls covered with simple metal armor rather than energy shields. "Launch our fighters," Miller ordered. "Show them another human surprise." Squadrons of Earth fighters emerged from hidden bases on the Moon and Mars. Instead of energy weapons, they carried traditional guns and missiles. The steel-borne pilots, used to relying on their shields, found themselves facing weapons they couldn't block. "This is impossible." Bright's voice was filled with rage. "You were supposed to be primitive, weak." "You made a mistake, Commander," Miller replied as another wave of missiles launched. "You thought newer meant better. You forgot that sometimes simple works just fine." The battle raged for hours. The steel-borne's superior numbers meant nothing against weapons their shields couldn't stop. Their energy weapons were powerful, but had to hit to do damage, and human pilots had trained for years to dodge and weave. "Sir," Miller's communications officer called out, "we're getting signals from across Council space. Other species, they're using their old weapons too, the ones they kept hidden." Miller watched as the mighty steel-borne fleet fell into chaos. Ships exploded or retreated, their impenetrable shields proven worthless against humanity's primitive weapons. High Commander Bright's image had long since vanished from the screen. As the battle wound down, Miller received a transmission from Earth Command. Director Wells appeared on screen, looking tired but satisfied. "Well done, Captain," Wells said. "The steel-borne fleet is in full retreat. Looks like they finally learned not to laugh at human ingenuity." Miller looked at the debris field that had once been the invincible steel-borne attack force. "Think they'll remember the lesson this time?" "Oh, I think this is one lesson the galaxy won't forget anytime soon." Wells smiled. "After all, it's hard to forget when the reminder is written in kinetic energy and good old-fashioned gunpowder. 1 month after the Battle of Earth, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different. Where once delegates had sat in neat, organized sections, now the room showed a mix of old and new technology. Some species had returned to their traditional weapons, wearing them proudly. Others display both energy and physical weapons, embracing a blend of technologies. Captain Miller stood at the center of the chamber, just as he had during Earth's first presentation. But this time, no one was laughing at human weapons. "The investigation is complete," Ambassador Reed announced, his illuminated pod hovering at the head of the chamber. The Steelborn conspiracy went deeper than we imagined. They had been manipulating Council military policy for decades. Director Wells stepped forward, holding up a data crystal. "We found evidence that they sabotaged weapon development programs across 17 different species, all to make their shield technology seem like the only viable option." The chamber remained silent as images of secret Steelborn facilities appeared in the air. Factories that had produced pirate ships. Training bases where they had prepared raiders to test their shields against different species. "And now," asked the tentacled council member who had supported Earth during the crisis, "what becomes of the Steelborn?" "Their leadership will face council justice," Reed replied. "Those who weren't directly involved in the conspiracy will be allowed to rejoin the council, but with restrictions. No species should hold that much power over others again." Miller cleared his throat. "If I may speak." At Reed's nod, he continued, "This whole mess happened because we all forgot something important. There's rarely just one right way to solve a problem." He picked up his rifle and an energy weapon, holding them both up. "New doesn't always mean better. Old doesn't always mean obsolete. Sometimes the best solution is to use both." The chamber erupted in approving sounds from a dozen different species. Reed's eyes twinkled with satisfaction. "Which is why," Wells added, "we propose a new council defense initiative, one that combines the best of all our military traditions. Energy weapons and physical projectiles, shields and armor, new technology and old experience." "Who would lead this initiative?" someone called out. "We suggest Captain Miller," Reed answered. "He and his teams have already begun working with other species, helping them recover their traditional combat methods while integrating them with current technology." Miller looked surprised, but stood straighter. "If the council agrees, I would be honored." The vote was unanimous. As Miller accepted his new position, he saw many council members examining their own weapons with newfound respect. Some were even trading knowledge, teaching each other about their species' traditional fighting methods. Later, in a quiet corner of the chamber, Miller spoke with Reed and Wells. "It's strange," Miller said, watching the council members interact. "A month ago, they were laughing at our primitive weapons. Now they're all talking about bringing back their own traditional arms." Wells smiled. "Sometimes you need a reminder that newer isn't always better, that there's wisdom in keeping what works." "Indeed," Reed added. "The Steelborn's greatest mistake wasn't their ambition. It was believing that progress only moves in one direction. That advanced always means better." Miller watched as a group of younger delegates examined an old Earth rifle with fascination. "So what happens now?" "Now," Wells gestured to the chamber, "now we build something better. Not by throwing away the old or blindly embracing the new, but by learning from both. The council will be stronger for this," Reed said confidently. "More diverse in our methods, more respectful of different approaches, and much harder to manipulate." As they looked out over the chamber, Miller saw the future taking shape. Species that had once mocked each other's methods were now learning from one another. Old weapons and new technology were being combined in ways no one had imagined before. "You know what the funny thing is," Miller said quietly. "They're still using Steelborn shield technology, just not the way the Steelborn intended." "Oh?" Reed asked, curious. "Yeah. Turns out if you modify the shields to work with physical armor instead of against it, they're twice as effective. Best of both worlds." Wells laughed. "Now that's progress. not throwing away the old or worshiping the new, but finding ways to make them work together. As the session ended, Miller took one last look at the chamber. Where once there had been uniformity, now there was diversity. Where there had been mockery of primitive weapons, now there was respect for proven methods. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Sometimes the old ways were the best ways, especially when combined with the wisdom to know when to use them.